Hello and welcome back to the Try Time podcast. I'm Matt,
And I'm Callum.
and today we've got something a bit different. We've not got the quite formal videos we sometimes have. This is kind of a bit more of an informal discussion between us regarding who we think might be in line to replace Steve Price at Warrington for the 2022 season when he indeed leaves the job. So we've kind of had a think and come up with about 5 names or so. We might add a few more into the list depending how this goes, and just see what we think each of their chances are. If there's anyone that we don't say that you think might be in the running, pop them in the comments and feel free to make fun of our opinions. If you like these informal style videos, then do drop us a sub on YouTube. We are hoping to get to 100 subscribers as soon as possible really, so any help you could give the channel would be great. And yeah, like, share, the usual good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, now you've had a chance to click the big red button, then let's move into the first name. And this was the first thing I thought of once it was announced he was going. But arguably the most successful coach in Super League history. Could we see Brian McDermott lining up at Warrington? What do you think?
I think definitely an option. I think a lot of people went straight to this name, obviously, out of a job after the whole Toronto scenario. Proven, he's won titles. It's not like Warrington wouldn't be looking at a manager of his calibre to take them forward for the position that they're in. I think, he's well respected around rugby league, them sort of circles. So realistically, it's a feasible option, especially since he's out of a job as well. Means it's more sort of plausible and more, you can see it more than some other managers who'd have to leave other positions. So I think big thumbs up from me. I think he would succeed at Warrington with that batch of players that they've got.
Yeah, one of the things I saw on this, which I did think was quite funny, is we all know how Warrington took Tony Smith on. They seem to apparently like Leeds cast-offs. So there we go. That might be another reason they get him. It probably isn't, but I just thought that was quite a funny thing.
Yeah,
But
true.
yeah, he's going to want another job soon, surely. He's got to keep petrol in his Scirocco.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? You'd think he's due a job surely at some point to get back into the game. Whether that's, it could even be a higher championship team or it could be a Super League team. You just don't know. But
Well, that's a good point. Do you think his reputation has taken a hit with Toronto?
I think in the terms of the media and sort of rugby league fans, yes, but I don't think that will have hindered his respect from his peers and the people who make these big decisions of which managers coming into the club. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair enough. What about you then? What sort of names came to your mind here in the news?
I'm thinking a bit more sort of, positivist, I think is probably the right word. And a manager that...
Is this basically someone who doesn't sound like they're about to be so bored they're about to die?
It's someone that is, I think, when you think of this person, like it's sort of an excitable name, sort of young English manager. It is Danny Ward at London. I think he's been due a sort of big...
Oh, that's a good shout.
Almost a weird, big call up, if you get what I mean, to sort of a Super League side, even though he did manage London in Super League. But I do think he's a top manager. What he's done for London as a club has been amazing. And arguably, I think if he goes up to a team like Warrington, I do think he would succeed. Because I think he's got that sort of personable sort of with the players and that sort of thing. Because he isn't, as old as some of the people we're going to speak about. Which, I mean, shouldn't really factor into it. But I think he's definitely...
I don't know, if you were going to mention Wayne Bennett, it might, but...
Yeah, true. But I don't know, what do you think about Danny Ward potentially leaving London?
I think that's a good shout, actually. He did a good job in Super League with them. I mean, you probably know a little bit more about him than I probably do, having only really watched him for really 1 and a bit seasons when they did the Pro Middle Eights campaign. But yeah, they played some good rugby throughout, and actually, like you say, I think he has definitely impressed a lot of people in his time in the Broncos job. So
definitely,
yeah, I definitely would not. I don't think it'd go down badly. I wonder whether or not. I don't know whether Warrington would take maybe such a gamble in the sense to go for someone who's not really coached Super League for a huge amount of their career, but
Yeah, it's
I
a
don't
risk. It's a risk, definitely. But we've seen them risks being taken with, like a Brett Hodgson. That's a risk that's been taken by
Yeah.
Hull.
I mean, well, if we take a look at my opinion on what's going to happen to Hull this year, perhaps not, but yeah, I agree it's less of a risk than, say, if you were, I don't know, what's an equivalent of Warrington in football, Tottenham, for example. Big club, not really won much. To go for a completely unproven in the top flight coach would be, the chairman would be pretty much laughed out at the club if they tried that in the Prem, but
Oh yeah, true.
it's a bit more accepted in rugby. Let's assume they do want a big name though, and this is one I'm going to throw the hat into the ring of. What do we think about Sean Wayne?
See, that's an interesting one in that, obviously, currently in England job, we haven't really seen him do anything in the England job because obviously there haven't been any internationals. But from his time at Wigan, you know how top tier of a manager he is. And I think he arguably is. I think if we're looking through these options, he's probably the one that's the most. If you want someone for a long time, so you don't want someone who's ancient. But then you also want someone who's got the pedigree, and also someone who you think can actually make it your year if you're a Warrington fan. And I would
the
say
cliche in.
I would say Wayne's probably up there with fitting all the criteria kind of perfectly. The feasibility of this with him being England manager, he could do both, or he could leave England. We don't know what's going to happen with the World Cup and stuff at the end of the year, but I definitely.
I think the timing kind of works if he was to leave England straight after the World Cup. It's a good time to go, either because hopefully he's done a great job. England have just won the tournament, somehow defying the odds against the Aussies, and he goes out a hero, or alternatively we get absolutely played off the park by Tonga and he kind of accepts he's more of a club manager than an international coach. But I think it'd be interesting. It'd certainly be fun to see how the fans of, both clubs really react given his history with Wigan. Especially if it meant to see Sam Tomkins join Josh Charnley in blue and primrose. Don't think that'd happen, but it'd certainly be funny to see a lot of people commenting on that one.
Yeah, stranger things have happened, haven't they? And players. I do think that if Wayne was to move to a team like Warrington or any team in Super League outside of Wigan, or even if it were Wigan, a lot of them old players that he had under him would come back generally because of how successful they were and how well they sort of worked with him, how good of a manager the players have come out and said that he was and everything like that. And that's why I think he was a good appointment for the England job. And I think if Warrington could get hold of him, I think it would lead to some league titles if they could.
Yeah, I mean, how long was he linked to Catalan as soon as they started signing all the Wigan boys?
Yeah,
and
true.
I mean, there's a reason I wanted Wayne to replace Mr. Ferner at Leeds at the time. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been happy with what happened, but yeah, Wayne was the option I wanted then. So if I were a Warrington fan, I don't think I'd be too disappointed with it, even if the memories of him lifting the trophies with Wigan still were a bit too fresh in the memory.
I think one title completely rewrites all their memories, though, doesn't it? Let's be honest. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
So I do think he's definitely a good option, and maybe not the most feasible or the one that's probably the most likely, but probably the better of the options we've got here in terms of like how well I think he would do in the job.
Well, here's a thought. Let's throw it back to a comment you made when we were discussing Danny Ward's chances, to someone who, inexperienced, will have a full season of Super League management under the belt. Former Warrington fullback Brett Hodgson.
Interesting.
Certainly got the club connections that could see it happen. We've seen, particularly with the likes of Adrian Lamb and, well, I was about to say Sean Edwards, but we know how that ended up at Wigan. But, Ferner at Leeds, a lot of clubs across any sport really do love to bring their former players into the backroom staff. In fact, an even better example is, of course, Rob Burrow and the Rhinos under 18 side met just not that long ago.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely could be an interesting option, particularly if Hull do go on to have I'm about to say a good season, but I don't actually think they necessarily need to do that well.
Yeah.
I think if Hodgson puts a good can try and at least showcase what his style of rugby is about, and he can try to get them playing something that resembles attacking quality rugby, focusing on getting the points on the board. I think that's the sort of thing that Warrington might just be tempted by.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, he's a bit of an unknown quantity at the minute with how he's going to manage. Is he going to have a certain identity to how he plays and that sort of thing? So I think, see, the thing is, like, you've got Hull to not do well this year. I've got them to do decent. At what point is it a case of, right, so Hull are doing absolutely terrible, as you have predicted, and halfway through the season, Hodgson's let go? Would he then be in a position to take a Warrington job the next year? I don't necessarily know. And then if he
maybe
doesn't...
not, but if they do, let's say, I mean, we could be wrong for the purposes of arguments. Let's say my prediction of Hull was bang on. They survive, but just only beat Wakefield.
Yeah.
If stylistically they are trying the right things and it's not coming off, either because of the personnel that are at Hull FC or because it's so different from the tactics employed by Radford and Andy Lass, then do you give that a go with Warrington, where you are supposedly signing the pick of the bunch and some of the best players in the league, that if they can get the signings that align with Hodgson's vision for rugby, perhaps better than Hull have managed to this season, where they've not actually changed a huge amount of players in the squad, is that something you go for?
Yeah, I mean, the thing, in terms of, I think if Hodgson does well as anyway, I think he would be a good manager for Warrington, realistically. But the terms of, I think what was most likely to happen for Hodgson to go there, I think if he fails and gets let go, I think he'll probably slot into an assistant manager role, whether that's it could be at like a Huddersfield like former team, like that sort of thing, or even at Warrington in the future. But I think he has to have a good season, solid, have a real identity. Maybe not even have to make the top 5. Makes top 5, that's even better.
Oh, definitely don't. I definitely don't think top 5 will be the criteria to become best of the rest in Super League. I mean, I think if you finished 7th, 8th, had a clear style, Hull were playing good rugby, perhaps didn't get the luck some games, I think you'd still have him up there just as much, because I don't think there's any shame in missing out on the top 5 this year.
Oh, no, definitely not. But I do think that they finish like 7th, 8th, that's what I'm saying. Even then, have a good season, real identity. Then Warrington come knocking, I could see him making that switch. But I think if he has a bad season and he ends up getting sacked, or maybe they stick with him and it's not so good, I can't see him making that move. Not this time anyway. Maybe in the future.
Yeah, I'd agree. If he gets sacked, then there's probably a reason for that, and they probably won't go near him. But
yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, I think that's probably all the interesting names, but I don't think we can really have a discussion about who's going to take over without discussing who's currently at the club, particularly because despite a lack of Super League title, the Steve Price era has actually been rather successful overall, and they've done pretty well.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, there are probably 2 main names actually in terms of Warrington's current backroom staff that stand out as being the obvious choices to get the promotion. First one, who I don't really think it will be, but again, you can imagine the scenes if he gets this, is Warrington legend Lee Briers, the Gypsy King. Just don't tell Tyson Fury that.
Yeah,
I think the more likely option is probably the current assistant and former Scottish international Andrew Henderson.
Yeah, because he has got that sort of he used to manage London and that sort of thing, and I think he's done really well in that assistant role. And I think I could definitely see that them just giving him the reins, that sort of thing. Or even it could be a dual thing with him and Briers. I think both are good options. Briers has obviously been in and around the club ever since he retired, really, working sort of almost as like a trainer, that sort of thing, within the hierarchy.
What a boy that seems to spend more time on the pitch than off it. He's been all over.
Yeah, true. So I definitely think they're plausible. Whether they're going to be the most successful options, but we've seen stuff like this work in the past where you just kind of give it to the assistant sometimes and it works. Sometimes it doesn't. You just,
Yeah, it's the boring option, but then it's kind of the whole if it's broke, don't fix. If it's not broke, don't fix it sort of discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what. Again, I'm going to come back to this. Look at what Leeds tried to do replacing McDermott when things went wrong. It was an absolute disaster with David Furner. They were far worse as a club.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. I think Warrington will be looking to do this right. I think they'll be looking to make a similar move to what Saints did when Holdbrook left and they got Wolf in. That sort of almost like seamless transition into a keep.
Actually, that's probably a much better example given the circumstances in terms of leaving on a high.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's a great shout, actually. I think as well, perhaps the Sean Wayne to Adrian Lamb transition at Wigan is another good one to look back to.
Yeah,
and those teams have got it right by picking people from the third part, from like a third-party club. Had they have gone internal with their promotion, I do wonder whether or not it would have been a success. Was Kieran Cunningham Saints assistant before he got the top job?
He was. That's how he. When he kind of was the assistant that ended up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
I mean, I can't really remember who was the coach at the time before. Who was the assistant? It wasn't Nathan Brown, were it?
Potentially, yeah. We're talking a good few years ago now, though, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, I know that wasn't Saints' dominant spell anyway around that point, but
there was still.
I certainly don't think they particularly got worse under Cunningham by promoting the assistant.
No, there's times when it's worked and times when it hasn't. I mean, I think an example of how we'll see how an assistant does is Marshall at Salford this year when he's come from Saints assistant to that. It'll be interesting to see. But he's also had that first team coach experience, which I guess Henderson's very similar, I think, to Marshall in the terms of they've both managed top level championship. They've gone into assistant roles. Can they do it in Super League as a main man? We'll have to see.
Now this could be interesting because perhaps Marshall's success kind of impacts Henderson's prospects if he does say want the top job.
Oh, 100%.
Because if he goes in and, Salford are again in and around this 5th place battle, they're looking at getting to cup finals. At what point, do you say this is a great bunch and Marshall's done a fantastic job, just as good as what Watson did, who, is widely regarded as one of the better coaches in the league.
Yeah.
Why, if you're Warrington looking at that, then, no offence, Henderson's going to be a lot cheaper than some of the other names on this list. Is it 100%. Worth the punt?
And he's worked with the players obviously closely, like very recently. It'd be probably quite a seamless transition, I would imagine. So
definitely,
but it's an option. All 5 of these, or I guess 6 if we're lobbing Breers in there as well, are good options for a different way. But if I were to put you on the spot right now to end the video, who do you see it being? If you were to put money on it now.
I'm going to go over for a couple of criteria. If I was a Warrington fan, I would want Sean Wayne.
Yeah.
In terms of bringing me success.
Exactly the same for me, by the way.
What I think is the most likely of these to happen. I don't know, I'd be tempted to throw it right back to the very first name we discussed.
McDermott.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, most likely for me, I'm actually going to go. I don't know why, I just can't see McDermott in that role now. I'm thinking about it. I'm going to go Danny Ward for the most likely to happen. I just think
that's a big shout.
I could see him leaving London in the next year, or if they don't go up this year, it's not out of the realms of possibility for him to leave. And if he gets the offer at a bigger club,
I'm going to make a bold prediction. Danny Ward will replace Darryl Powell at Castleford, who will. Oh, now here's a thought. See, I'm going to add another name into the mix here.
What, Darryl Powell?
If we think Darryl Powell might get sacked from Castleford or resign or whatever because they don't make the progress again this year, does he get the Warrington job? Because I think if he does leave Cass, he instantly becomes another favourite.
Yeah, potentially. That's all depending on who leaves who. But I've got another better one.
Go on.
This is a outside prediction. Might put a quid on it at bookies. John Keir.
Right, okay. Any reason why, or shall we just move on from that one?
Well, I mean, after he's took Bradford to Super League this season, he's going to be in demand.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
That's.
Is he going to win Challenge Cup as well and do double?
Yeah, why not?
Vainicolo coming back on wings as like a 45-year-old and scoring all tries.
Probably do a decent job in Championship.
Get Tank on flank, bring Carney back.
Right. What do you guys
I think we've exhausted this one.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. If you haven't already at the start of the video, do drop a like, share, subscribe on the video, and yeah, let us know what you think of the more informal stuff. If you like it, we'll bring more of it. If not, and you prefer our normal content, let us know. We can tailor this. Worth noting as well, just before we fully wrap this one up, this idea for this video was sent in by a fan on Facebook. So if you do have any other videos that you want us to cover, let us know. We do listen to your suggestions. So yeah. Plug the recent vids if you've not already watched them. Go check out what we've done in terms of Super League and Championship previews, kits. Just watch everything. Why not?
Yeah, we've got stuff. It's constantly going to be coming out, coming up to the start of all the seasons. Championship, Super League, and going through them as well. Going to keep in this sort of schedule, that sort of thing. So yeah.
And we got League One next week.
League One next week. So if you're a League One fan,
God
look forward to that one on a Wednesday.
I know nothing on League One, so stay tuned to watch me make myself look like a tit.
But yeah.
If that's not reason to sub, I don't know what is. And on that note, we will hopefully see you then.
Yeah. See you later, guys.
Bye, mate.